Thank you very much for joining us. Today I have as a special guest Catalin Tudose, who is the author of multiple books with many publications, but especially today we will discuss about persistence and his latest book, Java Persistence with Spring Data and Hibernate. Catalin, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me, Laurențiu.
I hope we'll learn a lot of things about persistence and how you manage that with Spring today from you. You wrote this latest book, which is regarding the persistence layer of Spring application. What can you tell us as being a main thing anyone should take into consideration when starting implementing their persistence layer with a Spring application?
First of all, we generally know, and I'm not telling anything new, that many applications have a persistence layer. Standalone applications had a persistence layer for a long time. Nowadays, we mostly have web applications in order to bring everything in front so that the user enjoys interacting with the application. In many situations, you will need to have a persistence layer behind. So persistence is something that if you don't come to it, in most cases, it will come to you. For the reasons of storing data, retrieving data, having a long-term access to the information. And things evolved, databases evolved, we need more speed, we need various ways to access the database. Sometimes people switch between different databases, even between relational databases and NoSQL databases, but there are some permanence in our applications. And the book tries to answer some fundamental question. If we will summarize what's in the book, how we can efficiently make the two worlds work together. So it is the database world, relational or no relational, and the object-oriented world. Java is one programming language that is object-oriented. It tries to access another world, relational or no relational, it's still another world. And some principles may still apply for other programming languages. With changed examples, but some principles may still apply for other object-oriented programming languages.
Yeah, so a Spring application allows me to both use SQL and NoSQL databases. How easy is to implement the persistent layer with either of these today?
Spring comes in the picture, of course, to support our development of Java applications. Spring supports us a lot developing Java applications, even in the absence of persistence, even more when we think about persistence. Spring is fundamented on the inversion of controller design pattern. And you will lose some control, you will push some control to Spring, so that Spring will be able to take care of a lot of things, of managing your connection to the database, of managing your credentials and other configuration things, to do repetitive things, to be of much help for shortcutting the access to the database. Boilerplate code, repetitive things are supported by Spring that comes here in the landscape to save us a lot of time and a lot of repetitive, boring things. I can detail if needed, but
no, I think that's indeed great, and that's why Spring is so much appreciated by the whole community. It makes our life a lot easier when implementing things. Like for example, Spring Data, isn't it? Spring Data, it's only like you put the interface there and some magic happens, and somehow you get an object, you inject it, and you use it without doing almost anything. How does it have this happen actually?
With Spring Data, you can have a fully functional database application from Java in just a matter of a few minutes. This is great. But of course, you need to know that this comes at a cost. What am I saying here? What do I mean? Of course, you want applications that you can develop fast. You would like to be maintainable applications. You would like to be bug-free, but you have to be aware of a few things. You want to start using Spring Data, that's a great option. But before starting using Spring Data, a developer should be aware, should master the Java programming language, should master databases, so direct interaction with the databases and good knowledge of SQL, whatever dialect, good knowledge of SQL is a must. Yes, and also some at least small experience with working with JDBC, the old classical way from a Java program to access databases is good to have, because you want to master, you want speed. You cannot just jump in the Formula One car without having previously driven a regular car on the streets.
Do you feel that Spring Data disadvantage is that it's too high level and now too many developers use it without having prior experience or the prerequisites they need, like knowing SQL, knowing how Vanilla JDBC works and stuff like that?
So there are two sides of this thing. In real life, it is very possible that one developer needs to join a project using Spring Data and say, okay, this is the project, go on and write some code, some working code, and solve these tasks. This is how real life comes to you. But for everyone that is involved here, and especially for those that have the power of deciding at the level of the projects, I would say do not neglect the good understanding of what is happening in the background. Do not neglect the understanding of what you do not see at the first sight when using Spring Data. Because of course we are all under the pressure of time and we have to deliver a code. You have a task that you need to finish yesterday. Okay, you don't master this, try to do this. But for the next tasks that you do not have to finish yesterday, try to make a little separate branch, master the technology, understand the technology and master the technology. And when you will face the new tasks, they will be much easier and much safer to implement for you.
But don't all the tasks need to be solved yesterday? Like, no joking.
I would say that if we try to be correct, no. Everything that we do in life needs to be solved yesterday, not only software, saying it this way. But if you hurry up too much, you are not going to get results in life and in software.
Yeah, I do agree with you. And now going back to our Spring Data and being high level, what you tell me is something that I've also heard in the past about Hibernate or similar JPA implementations, like people starting using it. Wow, this is so cool. I can create a class, an entity, map it to a table, and then suddenly we have performance issues. Suddenly we don't know how to implement this and that. don't you feel that it's actually the same way the technology progresses, like the like Hibernate and JP implementations, they are also sometimes misused because developers try using them without properly knowing what's behind the scenes?
This is technology in general. We have some shallow understanding of things in many situations, and if technology comes into you every day, you cannot get into the depth of everything. But if you want to perform in the field, if you want to be a very good Java programmer, a very good Java programmer that works with persistence, with Hibernate, and with Spring Data, you need to get into the depth. Not today, not tomorrow, but try to plan this, to acquire the knowledge and to master the framework. Because if you understand concepts, your productivity will increase. Not today, not tomorrow, but in a few weeks, for sure, it will speed up. So this is the advice for the developers, for the managers, for the customers that need to understand that if you don't plan your preparation with nowadays technology, with the technology that we're using in our everyday life, will not get too far away. Try to have a balance between your need to produce, to deliver code, and your need to prepare, to get the knowledge with the target of producing later better code.
So what would be a path for someone who starts now? Let's say they have a minimal knowledge of Java, but they now just start learning how to connect to a database. Let's just say it's, for the moment, a relational database. What should they expect? What's, in your opinion, the path they should take to master everything that we can name persistence layer of a Java application?
So first of all, I will go with the prerequisites. Java programming language, good understanding of it, experience of at least 2 years, I would say. When I say at least 2 years, I'm thinking about producing code every day or almost every day.
Hands-on in a real software.
Hands-on, of course, and the good mastering of concepts. Because even in this case, you may think about, do I use appropriately the Java programming language? Because there are a lot of people that may write code and not write the code efficiently. Also, a database, work with whatever relational, you mentioned relational database, whatever relational database you have in your project. MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server are the dominant databases today. Any of them is fine, and they have common principles. When you have a hands-on experience with these two things, I said probably 2 years, then you are on the good path. So you made the first steps correctly. Then, very important is to ask and answer why. Why do I need to use Hibernate or Spring Data? What will they bring to me? And which drawbacks? So we have to look both at the advantages and the drawbacks. The advantages do not pop up just in the very first moment. There is a learning path to create applications that are using Spring Data or Hibernate. There are a lot of possibilities to do this. My book is one possibility. To speak for myself, I also have the Pluralsight courses that are addressing working with persistence applications from Java. So try to prepare yourself for this path. This may take a few weeks, probably.
Maybe for later after our discussion, because you mentioned a few resources. Maybe you can give them to me, and I will put them in the comment section of the video, so our audience can test them if they want. Like the videos on Pluralsight you mentioned, and other books like that would be great.
I will provide I will insert them in the chat here. In the chat.
Cool.
So I will just provide a link to my profile, one single link, because there you are going to see everything, and most of things are related to persistence.
Thanks, Catalin. So tell me, I've learned Java persistence. Which are the most common pitfalls I should be aware of in your experience, architects and developers? What are the main common mistakes happen at the development or architecture of the persistence layer?
So we come with a new layer. Spring Data is a new layer on top of JPA. One pitfall is, of course, not fully understanding things, but let's say that you already digged into them, you already have a good command, and you wrote some code and it proved to be fine. Another pitfall is that you have this additional layer where many things may happen. You lose control, and let's be honest, you may lose some performance. You lose control is in the spirit of Spring. Spring wants to take control and to support you. Try to understand what Spring is doing for you, what it manages there. And I was saying you may lose performance. Coming with another layer is something that speeds down the access to the database. You have to be aware of these things. If you need high performant applications, especially doing insert updates, then think twice before using Spring Data. Spring Data may still be optimized for the selections, introducing this additional layer. But when you come about inserting, updating, deleting rows, especially if you do them very frequently, think about it. Do you really need to start on this? Which are the advantages of using Spring Data, and does it deserve to work with it at the expense of the performance? This may be something to think about. If you have an application that is doing mostly select, which is really happening, if your access to the database will generally retrieve a very limited number of records, that's still okay to work with Spring Data. Otherwise, think about it, maybe do some experiments and decide about it. Cool. At least for how the framework performs now.
That's really excellent advice, Catalin. What about testing? You told me about performance, and we discussed about how Spring Data simplifies the way you write applications, so maintainability. But I also know that you are actually a fan of testing, because you might have, oh, here it is. You might have your book here, which is your first book, in action. So I'm pretty much sure you also thought about how you test your persistence layer. So what about that?
Yes, this is a very particular thing, to test persistence applications. Because what you would like to test? In general, you would like to test your own code. But in life, and in particular with persistence applications, your code is not alone. Your code is not alone. Your code needs to integrate with other resources. And a database is a really important resource because you rely on what the database does, on what the database returns, on the results of your queries. And you would like to know that once you test your application, if something is signaled as wrong, you have red tests, it is because of your code and not because of an external cause like a database or the content of the database. Yes, you would like to have a safe code decoupled of the database. What can you do? You can do a few things. One thing is that at the beginnings, you may mock your database and configure the mock to always return some samples on which you are going to test your logic from the Java application. But then you will have to integrate with the database. And this is the integration testing step. You would like to work with a real database. And the book has a special chapter that is addressing integration testing the persistence applications. And the Spring framework provides a very nice test context that you can use in order to configure your tests, to make your tests safe, to make your tests clean, meaning that if I'm testing against the database, I don't want to leave something behind me. Yes, and the next tests will come on a known state, on the same clean situation. And just to say two things, you may test with dirty context or you may test transactionally. Best is to test transactionally. You access the database, interact with it in a transactional way. At the end of the execution, the transactions are rolled back and the next test comes on a known content of the database, because you would like not to depend on what the database provides. So you would like to have a nice integration testing.
Cool, thank you. A last question I have for you, Catalin, for today, and that is, I know a lot of people use JPA today, and it somehow became like the main stuff to use with persistence with Java. Which other technologies, older or newer, would you recommend one to at least take a look at in regards to persistence? What you would advise our audience? Hey, don't only take JPA, also take a look at this and that. They might be useful to you. You might need to study them later.
You may take a look, if you haven't done already, of course, at JDBC. And I'm saying this not to use it for the long term, but to understand what it is there, because everything that comes from JDBC addresses, from JPA addresses the JDBC layer. So I would have a minimum understanding of JDBC before using JPA, Hibernate, or Spring Data JPA for the long term. If you want to have some good performance, maybe it is worth trying Spring Data JDBC, which is providing some balanced combination between the inversion of control and the advantages of Spring and the capabilities of JDBC being closer to the database. Of course, this also comes at a price, and your applications will not be portable. They will depend on the database. So you see, there is no perfect solution, and wherever you will go, it will come at a price, either performance price, or you have to spend some time to acquire the framework, or portability. You cannot get everything at once. But if you are aware of the possible alternatives, of the possible solutions, and of the strong points and weak points of each of them, you may choose between them. So
Cool,
these are the additional things that I would say, let's have a look at them.
Cool, thank you very much, Catalin. So guys, you heard what Catalin said. My first advice for you would be, however, do take his whole book and read it cover to cover, because for sure you will find out there are more things that we managed to discuss in 20-30 minutes here. And I do still recommend also his first book. So it's a masterpiece in using JUnit for writing.
The second is here.
Oh, that's the second. Yeah. Cool.
So,
and Catalin, of course, thank you very much for attending this discussion.
Thank you so much, Laurențiu. Thank you for inviting me. Thanks everyone for following us.
Cool.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.